Deputy Water Resources Director. Also serve as the lead for our Big Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan Advisory Committee. Excited to be here for our November 18th GSPAC meeting, as we have been meeting on a quarterly basis. We're going to go ahead and start with the first agenda item. Before I get started, did everyone, did all the GSPAC members receive access to the agenda? All right, and if you don't have access to the agenda, anyone on this call, thank you, Sarah, go ahead and just put it in the chat, and either Kelly or William can send you that agenda item. Our website, which I'll talk about during this meeting, Val's joining us, the Lake County website, we are going through some modifications, so things might be a little bit difficult to find right off the bat, but I'll walk you guys through it. And thank you for being patient with us as we get all up to date on that. Hello, Val, thank you for joining us. We just started. You did not miss anything. Go ahead, Sarah. Your hand is raised.
Just a recommendation, if it's possible, that to add agendas to the calendar invites.
Yes.
When they become ready, and then that way it's all stays together very nicely.
I can definitely do that. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start off with roll call of our GSPAC members. David Wise with Bella Vista Farming Company. Hi, David. Thank you for joining us. Pat Scully with Scully Packing Company.
Here.
Good morning, Pat. Sarah Ryan with Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians.
I'm here.
Hi, Sarah. Scott Hornig with Special Districts. Scott did inform me that he will be able to join us later in the call. Val Nixon with Lake County Land Trust.
I'm here.
Hi, Val.
Hi.
Rebecca Harper with Lake County Farm Bureau. She should be logging on any moment now. She was having difficulties with the Zoom. Thank you, Kelly, for helping her.
Yep, I just sent the new Zoom, so hopefully she'll get it in a second.
Perfect. Thank you, Kelly. And Marina Delajanis, Lake County Watershed Protection District. And as you can see, we still have some vacant seats on our GSPAC, which we will be going through later into the discussion. So let's go ahead and go to agenda item 2. We are going to be reviewing and approving the minutes from May 20th, since those are still technically in draft form. And then also our August 19th, 2022 GSPAC meeting minutes. The listserv and the GSPAC should have gotten these minutes, but would you guys like me to share my screen and walk through those, or do you want to just take a few minutes to review those documents that were sent? If I hear nothing, we'll go ahead and just wait a few seconds until I get motion from a GSPAC member to approve the May 20th minutes.
I'll move to approve the May 20th minutes, Marina.
Thank you, David. I am looking for a second.
I'll second Val Nixon.
Thank you, Val. All right, and we are going to our August 19th GSPAC meeting minutes. Thank you, Kelly, for preparing these and drafting these up. There are no questions. I'm looking for a motion to approve the August 19th, 2022 GSPAC meeting minutes.
I did have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The look in the August meeting minutes. I just wanted some clarification on this. So it's on page 2. Lake County has 2 water agencies providing up to 25 gallons per location. for those having issues with accessing potable water due to dry wells. Okay, so these are, yeah, okay, I'm looking at the notes again. So these are the ones that were set up for the Clear Lake intake folks, but it was also the county worked out to make it available for anyone else with dry wells. Okay.
That is
And
correct.
what was there outreach on that in particular?
No, so that was coordinated not by the county, but you can see Canocti Mutual Water Company and Golden State Water Company. Their specific outreach efforts, I am not quite sure, but that is actually on my to-do list to make sure that that water is still available. And if so, and if it's available to all folks around the community, I want to make sure that we do outreach to identify that and share that resource.
Okay, so that's still a to-do.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. If there are no more questions, looking for a motion to approve the August 19th minutes and a second from the GSPAC representative.
There is a typo on page 4, your name.
Oh, goodness. We can't have
Oh,
that.
it's under 3.3.
Okay, perfect. We will make that.
Probably need to get one of the 2 people that were at the meeting to approve the minutes.
Well, I make a motion to approve the minutes with corrections.
Thank you. And I will make a second. All right. Moving forward. So we're moving on to agenda item 3, Big Valley groundwater updates. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to William Fox, Water Resources Program Coordinator. I will stop sharing my screen. He has some groundwater monitoring updates that he is going to be sharing with the group.
Hello, everybody. Just give me a second to get my screen going here. All right, can you guys see this Excel sheet?
Yes, we can, Will.
Okay. So here are a list of our monitoring wells here on the left. And then at the top, you'll see our fall 2022 water levels. That was recorded on October 15th, I believe. So these are the levels for this year, this fall. This column is a comparison of spring versus fall. As you can see, spring levels are almost always higher than fall levels. So that is pretty typical that the levels are lower in the fall compared to the spring, but I wanted to kind of break out some of the differences. Some wells had differences as much as 20 or 30, and then some wells had differences less than a foot or very minimal between the spring and the fall. So there's quite a variation in differences between the spring and the fall measurements. Then you can see the spring measurements in this column here. Highlighted, these are our RMS wells, so our representative monitoring network wells. And these are the fall 2021 levels, so a year ago. And then in this column, you'll see a comparison of the fall 2021 to the fall 2022. And what is good is almost all of our water levels came up from a year ago. Comparatively, there were only 2 wells that had lower water levels compared to a year ago. So I just wanted to briefly go through that. And then I dive a little bit deeper into our RMS wells, since those are the ones that are the triggers for our GSP. You can see again, this is our fall water levels here. And then our 2022 spring fall comparison. They were all, let's see. So like I said before, all of the fall measurements are going to be lower than our spring measurements. Only one of our RMS wells was considerably lower. You'll see this one. And then this is the 2022 spring levels. So these two compared, then the fall comparisons. And like I said before on the previous slide, for our RMS wells, all of the fall measurements this year were actually higher to the surface. So water had gone up marginally, but still it's good to see that it's not lowering groundwater conditions or a trend in that direction. And then kind of revisiting our minimum thresholds, our MTs that we set up. So this is the lowest historical spring groundwater level. That's what has been set for each well. And you can see that we are above the MT for every single well. We are considerably above it for every well, except for this one, 32G1. It's kind of smack dab in the middle between the MO and the MT. And then moving into the MO. So this is the measure objective. This is what we want to get to. This is ensuring sustainability. And you can see what those numbers are set with for each well. And then this is a comparison between, this shouldn't say spring, this should say fall. Sorry, I did this kind of quickly. But then this is the difference between our MO, our measurable objective, and that fall measurement. So you can see we're actually meeting our MO for 2 of the wells, or above it for 2 of the wells. One well, we're pretty close to it, just about 2 feet below it. And one well, as I said, we're kind of between the measurable objective and the minimum threshold. So that's what I was going to talk about for water levels. This is the maps of all of them on the bottom here. And then I'll quickly move. Does anybody have any questions before I move into water quality? Yes, David.
A couple questions, William. First of all, what is RP, or feet below RP?
Okay, so this is feet below reference point. So reference point. So obviously I'm not measuring from the ground level in these wells. The wells come out of the ground maybe a foot or 2. So that's where the measuring point is on the well. So that's the reference point.
So the reference point is consistent for a given well, spring to fall,
Yes.
year to
Yes.
year. All that.
Yep. It's a, yeah.
And then what was the date on which these were taken in the fall of 22?
22 October 15th for
And
most of them.
And roughly the same for 21 in the
Yeah,
fall?
we try to do the first week of October for our fall measurements. So it's going to be within 2 weeks of that October 15th date of last year.
So I'm just trying to see if there was any impact from the big rains we had in October of 21 on the 21 fall number or not.
Yeah, well, the 21 fall, are you saying because the fall rains came before October 15th last year?
That's my question. I don't remember the date or the timing, but I would have thought that if there had been any impact from those rains, it might have picked up and shown a more favorable number in the fall of 21 than we might have seen in the fall of 22.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. When I compare almost all of the fall 21 data to the fall 22, you can see that this year we're in not a lot, but almost every single well is doing better than it was a year ago. So it seems to be that this 2022 year groundwater levels were a bit higher consistently across the basin compared to fall of 21.
Well, that's great news.
Mm-hmm.
That's great news.
Yep, definitely. Anything else?
No, thank you.
And then quickly going into water quality. So we're doing routine. We're trying to do a quarterly groundwater quality monitoring. So it had been done in September of 21 by DWR, and then Lake County started doing their own groundwater quality. So in on March 28th, we did our first round on these select wells, and then we did it again in September. And so here we were monitoring 6 wells for arsenic, boron, nitrate, specific conductance, and TDS, total dissolved solids. I put either the MCL or the California notification level on it for all of these parameters. And every single well that we tested, everything was below the maximum contaminant level or California notification level for all wells that we tested both times. So that's also good that we're not exceeding our MCLs for our RMS wells for water quality.
Great.
Any questions on this before I stop sharing my screen and allow Marina to move on?
Do you still have plans to put in more wells?
We do. I've been trying to follow up with the California Department of Water Resources, DWR, because they originally were telling us the summer of this year. That did not happen. They'd been very held up in groundwater sustainability plans, is my understanding. And then I think they had some problems with their driller. So that application is still in flux. We're still really, really hoping, and we still think it will happen. It just seems like it's been very delayed because DWR is very busy. Did that answer that, Val?
Yes, thank you. I think they're extremely understaffed from what I can hear right now.
Yeah, and they definitely have a big workload on their plate right now. Sarah, I see your hands raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for this report. It's really helpful to be seeing both the data and the map. Do you plan on two things? One is this going to be like put on the county's page, groundwater page, and also do you plan on just kind of continuing this type of tracking for the RMS wells and in terms of water quality and water level?
Yes. So yes to both of those. It will be included in the meeting summary packet after this meeting, which will be posted to the county website. And we do continue, or we will continue monitoring for water level and quality. Quality will be on a quarterly basis. So I will be doing another one of these in the earlier part of December or mid-December. And then again in the spring, and that'll be continuously, I guess indefinitely, as long as we're on this path towards sustainability. And then with water levels, again, that's spring and fall comparison. We do a set of monthly wells, but I haven't kind of plotted those. That's only 10 wells that we do monthly. And I don't believe any of our monthly wells are, well, actually 03R1 is a RMS well. So one or two of the RMS wells do have monthly data, but it's easier to compare fall and spring. So I can do that. And I'll talk more about our data management system, and we're doing an interactive map that'll be publicly available and have all of our water level and data, water quality data on it. I'll speak more about that towards the end of this meeting. All right, stop sharing my screen.
Awesome. Thank you, Will. Let me go ahead. And just real quick, everyone can see my screen again, correct? Yep. Okay. Similar to what we've been seeing the last few months, there have been no recent updates in terms of dry wells that have been reported to the state's dry well tracking. We at Water Resources have not been received any notifications of any additional dry wells. So our number of dry wells throughout the county have been consistently 30 for the past few months. Go ahead and move forward. So our next agenda item, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
If this is a topic that should be discussed elsewhere, then please let me know. But I know that it's been discussed in some of the just drought meetings and conversations that have been happening, especially earlier this year, about improving the communication at the county level regarding dry wells, and knowing that a lot of people don't want to report because they're afraid they'll get red tagged, or they just don't want things to come down on them from, I guess, almighty government. That things are, underreported, that wells are underreported. I'm just wondering if you've had some, what you've been able to shore up locally or, within county government on that, because I know environmental health is also the ones who often get reports that these things are happening, and whether you're have any additional places for people to be, kind of communicating these issues in a safe way, since they feel unsafe or something about it, reporting that type of stuff.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Sarah. And I know we've had these discussions in, a variety of different formats. And one exciting thing is the county has a new chief resiliency officer that was recently appointed and is a very active and vocal community member. So I'm really looking forward to working with that position in hopes that we can get some sort of material outreach going in terms of dry well tracking. So that's an avenue that I'm exploring. I don't want to overbear them, as they just they're not going to officially start until December. But that's a conversation I'm planning on having. But then we still run into the issue, right, of folks having mistrust for the government, or whichever office it comes out of, whether it be environmental health, my department, or admin, which that's the chief resiliency officer will be under. There's still that disconnect. So I'd really love to work with any groups on this call, especially Sarah, to see if you have any guidance or expertise in terms of getting some of that outreach out there. One of my intents is, again, just being more present in some of these community events. So having a tent at a farmer's market and just having, the dry well, having a little iPad available where folks can put it in themselves, but we can walk them through it, or giving them some of these resources that are, I know there's some available loans through other entities that are not the county, like the RCAC, et cetera. And then just pointing them in different guidance and direction, similar to the available potable water that we have. So just being a source of knowledge and resources for the community, and just getting it out there and hoping that they grab it and run with it. So being more present and being more vocal about it as we move forward into this drought, future droughts, et cetera. So, and I think there's also a lot of misunderstanding from the community, and quote me if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of folks that still don't know where to go in terms of getting this drought information. So we are in the process of developing that drought portal for the county. And my intent is to have that on the County of Lake homepage, similar to how we have the cyanobacteria portal, where folks can just go and they can get all the information about cyanobacteria. So it's right there when they look up Lake County. It's on the hot links or quick links per se. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, that was the appropriate spot to talk about that. So, all right. So our Big Valley Facilitation Support Services, you may have noticed that we have not had our friends with our facilitation support services on the last few calls. We are still chugging forward with that. So our FSS services, as we call it, is support provided by our friends from the California Department of Water Resources. Our friends through FSS have been very beneficial to help us develop our GSPAC, getting our GSP, all the outreach and engagement going. We did apply for round 2, as you can say, for FSS. I think we are all in agreement that having that support and that facilitation expertise provided from the group has been extremely beneficial. I know I can speak on my end. It has been extremely beneficial. So here you can see the asks that we asked for our FSS application. We are hoping to hear back any day now regarding the approval. From my understanding, our application is being reviewed at the state level. We had our friends in our northern office review it and approve it and send it off to the state. So now it's on the state's desk, and I'm hopeful that we'll hear back from them any time now regarding the approval of our FSS request. We have different tasks, which I will briefly go through, but of course this is not finalized until I get that agreement in hand. When I do get that agreement in hand, I will send an email out to our listserv and our GSPAC, just notifying them of this. You will see later on to the agenda, I am planning on doing an update to the board on early December. So hopefully we'll get our FSS awarded by then, and that will be fun to share with our GSA. So for the first ask was our GSPAC meeting support. So 8 workshops for the implementation of our GSP, up to 5 special subcommittee meetings, which we had subcommittee meetings for our GSP, including our PMAs, finance, etc. So similar to that nature. Now, public outreach and education, again, one of our biggest efforts. We are hoping to develop a story map created and posted online. Again, this will be a great resource for the public to walk through in an easy format and fun format. Maybe I'm a nerd, but I love story maps, to go through and see what we've done in terms of our Big Valley GSP and as we are transitioning to the implementation. Another priority for us, as we've outlined in previous discussions, our disadvantaged community, tribal and domestic well owner outreach and education. This is one of our biggest emphasis. So utilizing our FSS services to fill the additional seats that we still have, community leaders, management plans, desired target audience, special meetings held, and tribal workshops. But with this, we would work directly with those communities to see how this could benefit them and make sure that we're doing things the correct way. And then also GSA manager meetings and board updates. So up to 6 updates to the GSA board, presentation materials, slides, etc. Just providing resource with that. And then of course the ISP administration. If you receive any sort of support from whether it be the state or federal entity, you have to do lots of reporting, which takes a lot of time. So providing support and guidance and assistance on that. So that's what we're looking for. Again, this is not finalized. There may be some modifications depending on the availability and preference of the state, but taking the input and guidance from all of you to develop this FSS application. And thank you, William, for your support and development of this. But with that being said, are there any questions? I know I'm looking forward to hopefully getting our FSS services again.
So this is Val,
Yes.
and I just got a email this morning to support the Land Trust to support. Is this what this is?
No, so that is, and we'll get to that. That is for our grant application for the Prop 68 Sustainable Groundwater Management Implementation Grant. That is for that support. This one is, it's a relatively straightforward application process. So we don't need, they don't give us funds directly. The state works directly with consultants to do any sort of billing aspect of it. We just apply via an online grant application, which is again relatively straightforward, and then we get a notification that we are awarded this. So that is not directly related to that.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I didn't really have time to read it yet. So.
It's okay. Any questions on FSS? Great. Stay tuned. And this is similar to the technical support services that the state has provided for our water quality monitoring. So again, just appreciate the state and all their support and guidance they've been able to provide for us during our GSP planning and now implementation. All right, so we are going to go ahead and move on to item 4. I don't have a break outlined in our meeting. I don't think we'll go until 1:30, but after we hit agenda item 4, I'll check in with the group to see if we want just a real quick restroom break, 2-minute break. So just keep that in mind as we're going through this, okay? All right, so I have agenda items 4.1 through 4.3 outlined in this slide, and then I do have some more elaborations on 4.2 on a next slide. So 4.1, our current grant agreement. The numbers are probably irrelevant to you, but that, just to reiterate, that is our planning grant that we were awarded by the state to help us develop our GSP. We did thankfully get an extension for that, and you can see that it extended until December 31st, 2022, and January 31st, 2023. The difference with these is basically the state usually has a timeline of when work needs to be completed and then when the billing needs to be submitted. And that is very common for state grants because they understand that after work is completed, it may take some time for billing to be processed and received, etc. So those are the differences between those two extended deadlines, but it's for the same work that we are being done. The work that we will be utilizing our remaining funds for is for the grant agreement management, just payment for staff time to manage the grant. Again, that takes a lot of time and effort to do grant reporting, billing, etc., and time management. So that is very beneficial to be able to utilize our grant to do the oversight, proper oversight of this grant. And then what I'm very excited for is our Big Valley GSA engineers report for long-term GSP funding. Again, just planning for that sustainability and that long-term efforts for our GSP funding, as we know that we want to try and keep the costs as fiscally responsible and appropriate for the members in this basin. And we're still in the early stages of planning that. So again, we did have a few discussions during the GSP planning in terms of the financial committee. I know that we did not have a lot of dialogue as we were just rushing to get our GSP done, but if that's something that you were interested in being involved with, I will reach out to all of the GSPAC members to see if anyone wants to be involved in that planning and the development of that aspect, and we will still have more work to do. And then of course, these are all public meetings, so if we do have meetings regarding this, we will do the proper notification to ensure that not only GSPAC members can be present, but all members of the public. And that is going to take a lot of outreach and engagement, which we are planning on doing in terms of just funding of GSP. We want to be as transparent to the public as possible with that. So any questions regarding our grant extension for our SGM planning grant? No? Okay. All right, so our California Department of Water Resources SGM implementation grant round 2. So this is piggybacking off of our SGM planning grant round 3 that we received, a little under 1.4 million from the state that we used to develop our GSP. This is just the next phase of it. So even though our GSP is not approved yet from the state, we are still required, as you can see in item 4.3, to develop annual reports and move towards the implementation aspect of our GSP. So with our grant application, and I'll go through the table that we have drafted of our asks that we're planning on asking the state through this grant application. A big priority of us is filling those data gaps that we outlined in our GSP. We acknowledge it's not perfect and we do have some data gaps. So hoping to utilize some of these funds to fill in those data gaps that we have, outreach and education, and of course, the admin of our GSP. So this is due to the state. Initially, it was due to the state November 31st. The grant application opened up October 3rd, I believe. But thankfully, they did do an extension of this grant application. So it is now due to the state, December 16th, 2022. I did contract out with our consultants, Ludorf and Scalmanini, since they have the most expertise of our GSP and the engagement with our GSPAC and the community in this basin. They are helping us complete this application since we at Water Resources do not have the capacity to complete an appropriate application in the timeline that we were provided. Action item, which I'll go over at the end of the meeting. I reached out to all the GSPAC members about 20 minutes before this meeting, and I sent you all a draft application or a draft letter of support. Really looking forward to receiving those letters of support. And if we need to have an additional call with just me and you to discuss anything, I'm more than happy to do that. But that'd be very beneficial to make our application as competitive as possible to get the support and guidance and input from our GSPAC. Moving on to 4.3, just a friendly reminder, our Big Valley GSP annual report is due in 4 months. And I would like to have a special meeting next month, which you'll see at the end of the agenda, and getting input from you all just to discuss more about the annual report. As right now, we're working on a grant application and et cetera. So don't have a whole lot of updates in terms of that, but just want to keep throwing that out there because we will definitely need the expertise and guidance from the GSPAC members to complete our annual report. So as I take a sip of water, are there any questions about that? And if not, I can move on to the draft table of our asks for the SGM grant if folks are good with that. All right. So this did not, okay, there we go. Sorry, it is kind of small, but I will walk through some very high level of what we're planning on asking for. Again, this is still in draft form. We're still working on the grant application, but this will give you all an overview of roughly what we're planning on inquiring. So we have 3 different components that we're planning on asking for financial assistance on regarding through this grant application. One is component 1 covers GSA operational Sigma compliance, GSP implementation outreach and compliance activities. Again, assistance with the GSP annual reports, 5-year GSP updates with model updates, GSA coordination, GSA updates based on DWR review comments. After the review period, DWR will give us any comments on whether they accept or do not approve our GSP, but they also give us an opportunity to outline any gaps or address any comments they have. And we have, I think, a 180-day window to address those. So if and when we get comments from the state, we will be able to utilize funds to address those comments. Long-term GSA fee studies and surface groundwater interaction, regional modeling update, and of course, grant admin. So this will help reduce GSP Sigma fees in our basin for the users in that basin. So this will be very beneficial if we get funded for that. As you can see, operating a GSA and a GSP costs a lot of money. Component 2, addressing data gaps and enhancing decisions. So ongoing monitoring, data gaps and enhancements. Expanding well monitoring network and data collection, conducting RMS well baseline water quality survey, develop well registration and domestic well management program, and data management system updates. And then component 3, these are the more of the boots on the ground, the action items, right? So some of our PMAs that we addressed in the actual GSP. So this is project actions with groundwater benefits. So our Adobe Creek Conjunctive Use Project, a project that we at the county have been trying to get funded for a long time. We're planning on, and we're hopeful that we can get funding for that because that will do a lot of great benefits in terms of groundwater recharge in our basin. And then groundwater and stormwater recharge feasibility study and short and long-term demand management actions. So the state has a lot of emphasis on these recharge projects. So taking the PSP, which is the proposal from the state, what they're looking at specifically, and what we have in our GSP, and then the input from you all, compiling that into one, fingers crossed, competitive application. So this kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask those now. I will be transparent. I don't have the specifics of each of these memorized now, but if I can't answer any questions right now, I will get back to you on proper responses. So that being said,
Marina, do you have any idea what the timeline is for knowing whether or not we get any of these grants?
yeah, so great question, Pat. So the application is due December, and I believe we hear back in March if we are awarded. So, and from my understanding, this will be one of the last opportunities to receive funding for GSP implementation. So we're crossing our fingers that our application is competitive enough to be successful. Sarah?
A couple items. What the first is, what is the language that's below the component 2, where you're talking about multi-completion wells and the $245,000 a well? So I'm just wondering what that is to start.
I can speak to that too.
Yeah,
Marina,
go
if
ahead.
you'd like.
Thank you.
So it's the same item as number 1 in the component 2, expand well monitoring network. That's how it's broken out. But this is to drill 5 completion wells along with our TSS application to DWR. So we want to put more wells in to monitor groundwater conditions. These would be near creeks to study groundwater surface water interaction. These would be deeper wells to study kind of the deeper aquifer, because most of our monitoring wells are quite shallow. So it's really putting in more wells to fill the data gaps that we did have in our original GSP. And then the telemetry network, so we're getting real-time data and not monthly or biannual data.
Hey Marina, this is Pat. Just wondering, where is the Where does it say 240,000? I'm just trying to find it on there.
Right here.
Okay, because I'm just, because ours were almost double that for our TSS wells. So you may want to just talk to Kelly before you submit your budget, just because she's also talking about how people need to account for inflation. So you may want to estimate a little bit high on it because they're pretty expensive.
And thank you, Pat, for that input. For folks that are not aware, Pat is with DWR and Kelly List is also with DWR. She's the grant administrator for this grant. And I appreciate that, Pat. I believe this is the table that we had developed before we spoke to Kelly, and she said the exact same thing. So we are planning on asking higher just because of inflation. And she shared the same thing, that a lot of folks in the Central Valley, they definitely underestimated how much it was to do that specific component. So I don't want to, I want to make sure that if we're asking the correct amount. Yay, inflation. All right. Any other questions on this there? Did you get all your questions answered?
I actually am gonna, I don't have any more questions at this moment, but I'm interested in your list. And well, I guess I do have a question. So the project management, I forget what they're called, but basically PMAs, I think that they were. So are there PMAs? Are these all kind of PMAs, or what? How do you link that?
Yeah, so the PMAs mostly rely in component 3,
Okay.
especially the Adobe Creek Conjunctive Use Project. So just to give you guys some background, if I could have asked for every PMA in our GSP, that would have been great, but we did want to spread it out. We do understand that there are some data gaps, so I wanted to be able to allocate some funds in terms of filling in those data gaps, and of course the component 1 as well. But with this entire grant, there's roughly 20 million available, and the majority of the GSAs and groundwater basins throughout the state are applying for this grant. So, trying to be realistic in what our asks are and how much we'll be able to get funded through that. So definitely prioritizing what is our high priority of what we need to get funded, and looking at costs as well. So you can see that there are some of these projects too that we have down here. So for example, investigated recharge locations and benefits, investigate stormwater capture for in lieu use, etc. Rehabilitation of Kelsey Creek detention structure. There are some other projects that we had in here that would have been great to get funded, but we definitely wanted to prioritize the Adobe Creek conjunctive use project, and then just again making our application as competitive as possible. But that does not mean that we are not looking at other grants or other sources of funding for some of these other projects that we can do as well, and definitely trying to complement our grant application in these projects and finding out what we weren't able to get funded and moving forward with finding funding for those projects as well. But yes, Sarah, let's definitely chat next week, early next week.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, any other any other questions regarding this application? No? All right, stay tuned. You all will be kept very much in the loop regarding this, so yay. Okay, just a real quick check-in. Do we need a quick 2-minute break, or are you guys ready to just keep chugging on forward?
Keep moving forward is my opinion, Val.
Perfect. Okay, I'm right there with you, Val. All right, so our GSPAC chartering process for GSP implementation. So here I have agenda items 5.1 and 5.2, GSPAC charter adoption timeline and spots needed. I know this timeline has changed a little bit, so thank you all for your patience. But Tuesday, December 6th is the day. Be there or be square. So I am going to be going before the board and hoping to get some guidance and assistance from GSPAC members to provide the GSA 1 an update of implementation, GSP, what we're planning on doing, talking about the grant application, that's fun, application of the FSS services, and as we transition from planning to GSP, but now implementation. And then also bringing to them the charter that we finalized a few meetings back, and then outline, of course, addressing any open seats that we have. So December 6th is the day that I will be going before the Board of Supervisors. I will be, if there's anyone that you know right off the top of your head, any GSPAC members on this call, you're available on that date, you want to help, or you know you're definitely interested in helping in some sort of position or opportunity with that, whether it be provide assistance with developing the slides or the presentation, or just providing your input or something that you want to share with the GSPAC, or even being with me in the Board of Supervisors chambers for that update, please feel free to email me or raise your hand now and I'll jot your name down. If I don't hear from anyone now, have no fear. I will be reaching out to the GSPAC after this to pester you guys and hopefully get some assistance. In terms of our, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, did you say that, so during the presentation and the kind of the update with the December, with the Board of Supervisors, do you expect to also be providing information about the open seats so that it kind of is applied for during, you know, or announced during that, or is the goal to have it be filled? But well, I guess it won't be filled by then, but yeah, just wondering about your process.
Yeah, so I am going to have an entire aspect of that presentation just talking about the open seats that we have available. I do have a press release going out by November 28th. I will send that to the GSPAC, that draft press release I have, just to get your input and guidance on, but that will be sent from the county admin office. But during our December 6th presentation, it's going to be a two-pronged approach. I'm going to have a presentation, Big Valley GSPAC presentation update. It's just going to, again, go over the GSPAC GSP implementation and highlighting those open seats that we have, and then 2, adoption of the charter document. So yes, Sarah, I will be talking about the open seats. And I am an optimist, but I am confident we will not get those seats filled before the December 6th, unfortunately. And on that note, I have not received any interest from any community members yet. Still the same process. I'll outline this in the presentation. I'll also outline this in the press release. If folks are interested for an open seat, or if they have a recommendation, that needs to be emailed to myself, marina.delajanis@lakecountyca.gov, or water.resources@lakecountyca.gov. Either way, it'll find itself to me. With the subject line of GSPAC open seat, and then just either outline the name and the possible seat or seats they could fill if you think that they might be able to fill 1 or 2 seats. But of course, we'll only have one person represent 1 seat. So for example, we won't have someone represent a private user, domestic well, and environmental seat per se. But if you think that they could fill either or, definitely still want those recommendations. Any questions on that?
Marina, I know we've talked about the private user before. Can you give more examples of, that seems like it's going to be a little bit tough one to find. Can you give more examples of what might fill that?
Pat, it's like you saw my presentation before I shared it, because lo and behold, a little bit more information on the open seats that we have. I know we've seen this table before, but it doesn't hurt to just briefly go over. So let's start from the bottom up then. So before we had Kelsey Creek Unified School District, which Kyle was great. It was very beneficial to have their input and their guidance, since they are technically a private user in the basin. But this is basically any non-governmental entity other than a natural person not engaged or trade in business. So I know some other ideas that we've talked about was possibly the cemetery. There's a cemetery in the basin, possibly getting their input. And William, you also mentioned the equestrian center as well. So those are some ideas that we had floating, but if there's any other ideas right off the top of your head, please let me know, and I'm more than happy to reach out to folks. And if you don't have one now, that's totally fine. And then of course we have the private user domestic well owner. This is going to be a key personnel to get on board. Previously it was Sky Hoyt, but ideally we have someone in our groundwater basin who is a domestic well owner, especially as we're doing more of an expansion of our monitoring network, doing water quality. assessments. And then now we will be developing our domestic well owner guidebook. It's going to be very important to get someone on board, and that is going to be a heavy lift as well. So ideally looking for someone who has the ability to provide guidance and support. I acknowledge that, that this is very difficult to stay engaged with a group of this nature. So I definitely appreciate all of our GSPAC members who have been with us from day one and decided to stay with us because we know that this is now no heavy lift. And especially as we transition into the GSPAC implement or the GSP implementation, it's also going to be a heavy lift. So being transparent with that as well. And then I'm also getting creative with ideas on how not only bringing folks to the table, but how we can bring the table to folks. So looking also at translation services, looking at abilities of not just having maybe Zoom meetings, but having the ability to go out and do other public meetings in the basin specifically. So just getting creative with that to make it more accessible and appropriate for folks who haven't been able to be at the table. Val, you unmuted yourself. Do you have a question or a comment?
I guess I hate to sort of like beat a dead horse or something, but I don't understand the bottom one, the private users that used to be Kelseyville Unified School District, that a non-governmental entity other than a natural person, not engaged in a trade or business.
Yes.
Is it the Unified School District a governmental entity?
No. So it's not with the county. The school business is its own private entity.
Okay, what else would be in that? Can you give an example of something else that would be besides the school district, just so?
Yes.
Recruit.
So some of the ideas that we had was the cemetery. That's not a government entity. I'm not entirely.
That's not a business.
Well, I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. I mean, if you think about it, it could be similar to the equestrian center because, I mean, you take in horses and you get some sort of payments, but I don't know if there's anyone from DWR who has any elaboration on that. This is one that we have struggled to fill, partially for this reason as well. So when I developed that press release, that's why I want to provide that guidance on that, of making it very clear on what a private user is. But for example, it can't be a boutique farm. It can't be, anything of that nature, someone that produces goods and sells it directly.
But it could be like an NGO per se, probably.
I would believe so.
Okay. Thank you.
You're not the only one lost, Val. Don't worry. All right, moving up, again, we have 2 underrepresented user seats. I know we've talked about this multiple times, but still looking to fill in these seats. We've had some folks from groups that advocate for disadvantaged communities and underrepresented community users, communities engaged in the GSP development process. For example, Clean Water Action, if folks who are familiar with GODU, GODU's expertise was very great and beneficial, something that we were definitely missing, even though GODU was not on the GSPAC. We did reach out to that group and they were not interested in filling the seat. They preferred we have someone in our community and specifically that Basin fill that seat, which is totally understandable and comprehensible. So again, we have 2 seats to fill on that. And then an environmental ecosystem seat. So the Nature Conservancy recommends identifying the beneficial use of surface water, which includes environmental users. Previously, it was the Tri-Council, and we currently have the Lake County Land Trust on that as well. And this is another hot topic that I want to talk about when we have a special meeting in December. Is these open seats, what specifically it means. How is that going to look like? Any questions on this? And what I'll do with this group, I'm working on specifying each vacant seat that we have, what it means, some possibilities, and potential candidates. I will send that to the GSPAC. My plan is to get that to you all before the December 6th board meeting. So you all can review that and provide any input on that. Sarah.
I guess I just want to register disagreement that small growers and farmers are an underrepresented user in in our area. I mean, possibly in other places, but you know, it was there were a number of small growers and farmers on the GSPAC, you know, when it was developed. So there was a lot of discussion, and they've also been very engaged in, you know, the Clear Lake Hitch conservation strategy. Certainly a lot of local meetings. If you look at the Big Valley Groundwater Management group, you know, that met for years, it's small growers and farmers that are on it primarily. You know, if you look at the crimps that we're doing, the assessments, the, you know, creek assessments in the county, the 3 creek assessments that happened. If you look at the crimps there, there's a lot of small growers and farmers engaged in that. So, you know, and they've done a really great job in, you know, making sure that their voices were heard in the, you know, kind of all of the politics that happen. So I really don't agree with that in our area. Like I said, probably other areas, but if it turns out that some of them are put forward, or there's somebody put forward who's a small farmer, small grower and farmer for that seat, we'll probably you know, disagree, just because there are already agricultural seats on this committee, and I don't believe that they have been underrepresented in any sort of decision-making process in this county having to do with resources.
And thank you for providing that. This is you know, the exact reason why we're having these discussions, Sarah, because I think that's important for us to keep in mind. And similar, if you folks remember when we, you know, because the GSPAC is, you know, not a voting entity, but we do provide recommendations. So we'll still do the same process where we go through, if someone comes to the table, each GSPAC member will have the opportunity to give consensus or non-consensus as to whether they think that person will fill in the seat. So Sarah, thank you for your comments on that. We'll definitely get that noted in the meeting minutes. But I agree, you know, that could work in some basins and not all basins per se. And this is a blanket term that was provided, you know, from the state, and just in terms of advisory committee and GSA development. So definitely want to make.
Marina, I'd like to make a comment on that. I disagree with Sarah on this. If you're really trying to reach out to the disadvantaged communities, this basin is an agricultural basin, and so much of if you're looking at the Latino community, are dependent on agriculture and work in agriculture and have their toe in agriculture. So I think if you're really reaching out to that community, there's going to be probably a high likelihood that there is going to be some interaction with agriculture. And if that's not what you're looking for, you should probably call it something else.
All right, thank you, Pat, for that. And again, all these comments will be reflected in the meeting minutes. And then of course, as we bring these recommendations, when we do get them to fill in these seats, all these comments will be tracked and presented to the GSA well in advance before we bring a recommendation.
Oh, well, I have another question. This is Val. Would an environmental ecosystem person need to live or have property in the Big Valley?
So that's something dependent. Again, I don't want to say I'm flexible with this. It's definitely dependent on the candidate, right? And it's going to be up to the GSPAC to decipher that. Right now, we don't have any recommendations. Ideally, these people live in the basin, right? That's the consensus of the GSPAC, but if that idea has changed, if we get someone who has strong engagement or works, you know, relies on the basin, that could be a possibility. But again, ideally it is someone that is in the basin, because that's exactly what this GSP is for. So I don't want to shut anyone out. I don't want to push anyone off who could be a potential great candidate for that seat if they don't reside in the basin, but they definitely have to have a strong relationship in the basin for a recommended candidate.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I wish that flexibility was there last time. I didn't feel like it was flexible. You know, we had some, we were interested in the Clean Water Action being involved and engaged in that. And it was, you know, there was very specific guidance from, I mean, mainly I thought it was Stan Tech, but assuming that they were, you know, they were putting forth your policies, that they had to be local, you know, I mean, they had to be in the Big Valley Basin. So I guess before, I mean, I hate to like look at the names and then go, oh no, I want to argue against them. Like I would rather just have a, I mean, and I know it's not like people are beating down the doors, right? Okay, so I understand that. But I think we should, before we see some names, like make a decision about that, because you know, there's it wasn't allowed last time.
And just to go off of that, Sarah, so we did reach out to the Clean Water Action during GSP planning to see if
they told me that nobody reached out to them.
Okay, I reached out to GoDo directly via email, and she politely turned down the offer to sit on our GSPAC. It was not right in the beginning, but when she was engaged and involved and we needed a seat, I did reach out to her via email to make that effort. And I did have discussions with her verbally at multiple events, and then formal email invite. So she did turn down, and her reason was, again, it was a very, very appropriate reason. She did not feel comfortable of sitting on the GSPAC because she was not in the community. But again, I do agree, Sarah, we definitely need to have consensus, and that's something that we can get that consensus on during the December meeting. I think it's going to be important for us as a group to decide on that consensus of, do we need these users to live, work, or rely on the basin, or should they just have that expertise? And I really wish people were lining up on the 3rd floor requesting, hey, I want to be, that would be ideal. That would be perfect. But we haven't seen that, unfortunately, and that's one of our biggest struggles. And I'm hoping that with our FSS services, again, it's just that outreach and getting out to the public. I think that's one of our biggest obstacles that we have not been able to overcome, is getting out to the public. And hey, do you know what do you know what a GSP is? Do you know what Sigma is? Do you know the work that we're doing? I definitely think that we can take a stronger emphasis on reaching out to these communities. Do you have anything else, Sarah, before I shuffle on over to David?
Well, I mean, just to point out that, I mean, I don't know when they were reached out to and they said no, but in the whole, after we had already been seated in our positions, and you know, I did reach out to them and they hadn't heard anything, and I had provided the contact info over to Stantec's, you know, the consultants, so that they could reach out. It just wasn't happening, and I was told specifically that they wanted to really focus on local. So I just want to put that out there, that I'm sorry that they said no. It wasn't right away that they were asked. So, but thank you.
Yeah, and if you have that contact, Sarah, please feel free to send that to me right now, as I'm making additional efforts, because maybe that's something they want to be involved with now, or maybe, you know, if I reach out to a new contact, they'll say yes. Definitely want to have those conversations, you know, whenever, and definitely open. Again, my intent is we need to fill these seats. I don't want to just fill them with anyone per se, but if the group thinks that a person is very well qualified to fill the seat, and we come up with a consensus whether they need to be in the basin or, you know, what have you not, we'll have that discussion during our December special meeting. It definitely needs to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. David.
Yes, I just wanted to say how important I believe these decisions or these representatives are, that they are local and that they are, I think if we're going to try to fill slots with, consultants or experts from whatever entity or whatever persuasion you choose, that's not who's benefiting or suffering the consequences of the decisions that this group will make or offer to make or propose to make. And I think that I really hope we can find local people to sit in these spots. I think it's a very tall order. And I think it's very likely that if we do, we're going to have people that will have multiple constituencies. I mean, I said once before on a call, one of these meetings, that I feel like I represent more than just commercial agriculture when I think about these issues. And I live in the Basin. My well is a shallow well, as it is for people who live in the same location I do. And some of those people work for me and some of them work elsewhere, but I feel like to say that, ag is overrepresented in this is just not right. And I disagree with it. I also feel that, we have to be open-minded about, a private domestic well owner, maybe somebody who works in agriculture, as Pat suggested. And, just because agriculture is the main industry here. So I think it's, to just sort of take out a big black Sharpie and cross off a certain segment of the population because they might have something to do with agribusiness is wrong. And I think we're going to just limit the choices of people, hopefully qualified people, in doing that.
Sort of on what we're talking about right now, if I'm sort of curious, like I don't live in the valley, but I'm president of Lake County Land Trust that has property in the valley. And I think there might be some biologists that, maybe don't even own land in the valley, but represent different groups that own land in the valley. So that's what I was looking for. I wasn't just looking for somebody who had no interest in the big valley, but they might not live there, sort of like me. So I hope I clarified what I was trying to ask for anyway.
And that's a good point. Thank you, Val.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't get input from people like that, Val or anyone else, because I think, expert opinion is what we need in a lot of these questions. But, but those people should be retained as consultants, not as voting, in my opinion, and not as voting members in the group.
So keep all this dialogue in mind, and I'll send out, especially for the GSPAC members that weren't able to be present today, we'll send out these notes before the December special meeting, but anticipate that this is going to be a priority for that discussion, just to get more structured guidance and input from the GSPAC regarding these open seats, especially as we're doing solicitation and hopefully getting those folks lining up to want to participate in our GSPAC. But keep that in mind. Rebecca, your camera came back on. Did you have anything that you wanted to share, or did you just want to smile at us? Nope. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
I did have one more thing, and that is our meeting times are probably not convenient for anyone who's working, unless their job will look, like maybe Sarah's job allows her to come to the meeting, but a lot of people, that's not the case.
Exactly. And Val, that is a big thing that I want to talk about. When I say, bringing folks to the table, that's not easy, but bringing the table to them. These are lengthy meetings. They're right in the middle of the day. Not everyone has that luxury. So we're not reaching all audience members. So it might take for us to have 2 GSPAC meetings, and I would love to have more meetings available in the evening hours, but then, you know, also looking at possibility of whether it be daycare, food, etc. Making sure that these meetings are held in reliable areas with reliable transportation, because you have to keep that in mind as well. So definitely getting creative with how we make these meetings accessible. But I agree that this is not an ideal meeting time for everyone. Of course, you can't have everyone at every single meeting, but we definitely can do more of making these meetings more available and readily available. And that might also mean having a hybrid option, you know, which we've tried before and we can continue to explore again. Having translation services, which every public meeting that we've had for our Big Valley GSP, we've had after 5 p.m. and we've had translation services available. So, you know, having opportunities of that nature as well. But definitely appreciate that input. All right. Okay, so moving forward, going once, going twice. Oh, okay. Be ready to chat about this in December. Oh, hi, puppy. And let's go ahead and move forward. So agenda item 6, GSPAC next steps. I just like to outline, have on one slide, what we're planning on doing in next steps. You could see throughout the presentation, I had action items, but this will just put it in one concise area. So our Big Valley GSPAC open seat solicitation, planning on being released by the end of the month. Our GSPAC charter adoption, looking for volunteers, going before the board as a timed item on December 6th. And that happens during the Board of Supervisors meeting. And that will also be the GSPAC update to the Big Valley GSA. So again, two-pronged approach there. GSPAC letters of support. All the GSPAC members should have gotten a request for a letter of support. But if you need to have a additional meeting with me to answer any questions I can, please let me know. More than happy to chat with you, but we are seeking those as quickly as possible. And then our grant application, which is our biggest priority in this immediate moment, is due to the state by December 16th with the objective to send it in sooner. Again, goal is to make that as competitive as possible. Do we have any questions on our next steps? And I didn't put names on who's doing what for next steps because it'll be me and William. And I'll be leaning on you all. So you'll hear from me if I need assistance. All right. Go ahead and move forward. So we have public comment period, of course, but before that, I'm going to go ahead and just do a very quick overview. Again, our water resources, website has changed. So I just want to, and the Lake County website. So I just want to show you all real quick on where you can find our meeting materials moving forward. And then I'm going to shuffle on over to Will. He's going to do a DMS demo, and then we'll open it up to public comment. So let me stop my screen just real quick. And if you have a browser that you can go onto, feel free to follow along with us. So if you haven't seen yet, here is the new Lake County website. Wow, so beautiful. And there's still, it just launched this week. So there's still a lot of things missing. For example, all of our water resources public meetings, including Middle Creek, Clean Water Program, all of that presentation material, historical presentation material, did not get updated and translated over. We have that, but Kelly has been doing an awesome job of getting all that information uploaded on the new website. She's doing her best. It is a lot of information because we like to upload our agendas, our minutes, our slides, and the recordings as well. But our water resources YouTube page is still active. So all of our meetings are still recorded and available on there. But what you'll do now, and you can still go to water resources, we'll have this linked on the water resources page. I'll show you where our Big Valley GSP. But to make things easier, the county is now consolidating all of our public meetings onto the upcoming events, meetings and events agendas page. So it's right on the front. And you can see right here, our Friday, November 18th, Big Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan. All of our meeting material is up there. So we have the agenda, and then once we get the draft minutes ready, and then the slides will be posted on here as well. So what we'll do is in a month before a meeting, we will have that meeting date on this homepage for Lake County. So looking forward to getting that information. Hopefully that'll make it more available and we can get more interest from folks if they see it right on the homepage. This is also where you're going to see the Board of Supervisors, Planning Commission, any county entity, public meeting group, you'll see it on here. If you go to view all events, you can, and I'm still not perfect at this yet. You can go by list, week, month. And then if you go to departments, scroll all the way down to water resources. Again, this is still a work in progress, but if you go to programs and projects down here on the left, you can do our Big Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan. So if you click on this, you can access our Big Valley GSP through the DWR portal. And then you can have all the board updates still that are readily available on when we've gone to the public. Videos, stay connected form. Will is going to talk a little bit about our constant contact that we're transitioning to, and then all of the resources. So all of that information is here. The only thing that is missing is, again, the historical documentations. If you guys recall, we had that chart that had the meeting date, the meeting material, and the recorded presentation. That'll all be transitioned on that first slide. So it'll take a while to get used to. I'm still getting used to it. We're still updating things, but I just wanted to show you guys the new format. And if you're going through something, our website, no matter what, anything water resources, and you can't find it, just give us a call and we'll walk you through it. We want to make sure that this is as user-friendly as possible. So that's what we're working on currently. Any questions about our water resources website and the meeting material information? And I'll still pitch out. If you want me to print off some meeting agendas for you all to post in your communities or wherever you want, just let me know. We can even drop off those agendas. Just let me know how many you need, and we can help post those around in the Big Valley community, making sure that it's not just at the courthouse, right, that those agendas are posted or online, but they're also hard copy elsewhere. Any questions on that? No? All right, okay, I am gonna go ahead and shuffle it on over to Will. You should be able to share your screen and give a quick overview of the DMS and provide that demo, please.
Yeah, of course. I didn't see that comment in there. I don't know if it was. Okay, thanks for joining in. So as you can see, are you seeing the map here with the Big Valley Basin on it?
Yes.
Okay. So this is our live publicly available DMS, which stands for Data Management System. We are trying to use this. It is still a work in progress, but it's going to house our water level and water quality data. Right now, you can see you can filter by type of well. We're also going to add identify which are RMS wells, which contain water quality data. And so that will all be publicly available. Right now it is live, so bigvalley.gladata.com. You can just click on a point. It'll show you all the information about the well. You can do view extended details. It'll show you more details about the well. And then you can go on to levels, and there's a hydrograph of the well. It has all of the data here. You can download the data in whatever format is best for you. You can just zoom in like that, and it'll show you kind of a more abbreviated, zoomed in version of the data. So that's really exciting. We're going to keep working on this and keep adding data and improving on it. We're going to be adding our water quality data that I showed you. And then we're going to be adding any data as I collect it to this interactive live map. So again, this is live, it's publicly available, and this is our proposed data management system for the future. You can see that Big Valley Basin's on here. We're thinking about adding our other basins as well, and housing all of our groundwater data in one space. Are there any questions on that? And then kind of just going off what Marina says, we're going to try and be using a system or service called Constant Contact. That's going to allow us to do a lot more in tracking when our emails go out, who's reading them, who's clicking on our links. It's going to keep track of a lot of things, and it's just going to be a better system to attach different documents to and allow us to actually see who's interacting with our email blasts. So look forward to that. Kelly's going to be helping out with that, and hopefully it's a lot prettier than our normal email formats to you all. Yes, Sarah?
Could you remind me what wells are showing like in that picture?
This is
That live
our
screen?
This is our MNN, so monitoring network wells. So these are, I think it's 46 wells that were included in our GSP that we monitor in the Big Valley Basin for water level. That's what's currently being shown on this map. And then so you can filter for type of wells. So there's agriculture, domestic, stock water, and there's other types of wells. But these are our current monitoring network that was included in our GSP and submitted to DWR.
Do you think that, and I'm assuming this wouldn't necessarily be publicly available, but the fact that, you know, well completion logs or well completion reports, whatever, are part of the information that environmental health collects, do you see logging in all wells that are new and newly coming in and possibly going back in time, so those could actually be mapped?
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's something that when we were purchasing this system that the consultant talked about, and the applicability to be used by environmental health or other county entities. And it would really allow us to track completion reports, track permitting. It could be used by environmental health, public services, even if special districts wants to add their well and make sure that their data is publicly available for the wells that they have in production. I do agree it would be nice to be used by multiple entities and multiple departments, and you could attach permits in PDF form to this as well, so everybody could see the permits if other entities choose to do so. There's a lot of capability with this system. So I think that is prudent that we reach out and try to get other entities involved in collaborating so we can have all of our well data housed in one system.
Yeah, I mean, especially since I don't think environmental health data is online. I think they have paper copies of, and boxes of paper copies and files of paper copies of things. And, you know, it's 21st century. It'd be great to have this type of thing.
Yep, I completely agree. Yep, so that is a goal for us and something that I think will really benefit the system to have permits available on here as well, so that we know permitted wells that are going in. And so if you hear or see a well and you maybe think that it is not a permitted well or an illegal well, you could go to this website and check to see if they have a permit. That would be great to be able to do. I know that is a concern for the public and for the county, unpermitted wells and the state, especially with the rise of the costs and the different permitting regulations that you now have to go through. So I completely agree.
William, I have a quick question. This is Pat, DWR. Are there any data gap areas that you're planning on adding wells or data points with the implementation grant?
Yes. So there are, one of our biggest data gaps was the groundwater surface water interaction. So we have proposed wells along Kelsey Creek, I think in Adobe Creek. You can see Kelsey Creek here. We do have some monitoring wells. Again, we really don't have many at all that are deeper than 60, 100 feet. So we would really like some deeper wells, as well as multi-completion, so we can better monitor the groundwater surface water interaction. And then some wells closer to the lake here, so we can even better understand if there's a flux between Clear Lake and our groundwater here, because I know Sarah still has a really cool program with CalWatch where she's trying to see if there is cyanobacteria in groundwater wells. So that's definitely a data gap that we're looking to fill. We don't have too many wells we monitor here close to the lake.
Oh, great, thanks.
Great, thank you, William. And we will go ahead and include that link in the meeting minutes so folks can explore that portal. And again, we'll make a post on Facebook just so folks can look at it and you can spread that resource around, because again, it's meant to be user friendly and it's meant to be accessible to everyone. So exciting and great work on that, William. Let's go ahead and share screen. Okay, so future GSPAC meeting dates. Again, I would like to have a special meeting in December, tentatively for December 15th. It's a Thursday, but I'm going to send a doodle poll to the GSPAC with this meeting, since we are going to be talking for the majority of it regarding the open seats. I don't want to meet during this time frame. I think we all agree that it works for some of us, but not for everyone. And especially if we want to make it as an engaging conversation as possible. We want to make this more accessible. So I will reach out to the GSPAC, send a doodle poll with some tentative dates and times in that time frame. I'm looking at that week of December 15th. But then our next scheduled meeting is not February 25th. I just changed it. Thank you, Val. February 24th at 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Still via Zoom, but we'll look at potentially having that as a hybrid option. So right now on our website, we still have the Stay Connected, but again, we're transitioning to Constant Contact. This is going to help us be more communicative with our GSPAC and the interested parties list. So you can still find that on the Water Resources website, but and we'll make sure that all the emails and contact information that we have already in our Stay Connected listserv, that'll get translated over to Constant Contact. But the fun thing about Constant Contact, and Will correct me if I'm wrong, but you can have your email or your phone number signed up on that, so then you can get text messages instead of just emails as well. So another good opportunity for folks to be informed and engaged and consistently updated in terms of our GSPAC. But before I closed out, I lied and I did not open it up for public comments. Are there any public comments from anyone regarding this meeting, GSP, GSPAC, groundwater? Going once, going twice. All right, you have until I end the meeting. On that note, oh, Sarah.
There was a question in the chat that still needs an answer.
Oh, question in the
It's
chat.
can you give an update on the well permits in the Big Valley Groundwater Basin that have had to be reviewed by the GSA since the governor's drought requirements went into effect, numbers, review process, etc. Is that the question correct, Sarah? Yep.
Yes, so the GSA has not received any of those. Those would come directly from environmental health. And my intent is to get that update from Craig. He has not sent anything regarding these permits and these applications that have gone through in our groundwater basin. But I know environmental health is well aware of the consecutive order or the drought order outlined by the state, but he has not informed the GSA on any of those permits.
And that would be wells that are non-minimus users, so use more than 2 acre-feet a year, and then not a public entity as well.
Yeah, maybe for the next meeting, there could be a report on that, or just an update on that. And I am interested in the process that the Board of Supervisors will have to go through as the GSA.
Yep.
And since they're going to be evaluating a hydrology report, I'm assuming there'll be a staff report from you guys and, that type of thing. So does that mean that there were no wells drilled in the Big Valley Groundwater Basin from the time of the executive order to today that were agricultural wells? mean, that's what it's basically saying. So anything over 2 acre-feet a year, that's a non-public, that's not a public water system. So
That is
okay,
correct. So no
No-
wells that, yeah, no legal wells, you know, we always want to add that. I have
Yeah.
not received anything from environmental health on that, but Sarah, yeah, that definitely is something that we can talk during our special meeting and then also just the February 4th meeting to go over that process of what does it mean? What is this executive order? What is that process? And then of course, providing any updates or statuses of any permits that have been received and may not have been processed yet. Or, you know, ones that are going through that process, because it would have to go through the GSA, and that is in a public format. So that would be posted on the Board of Supervisors agenda, which would have to go through my office, because I would bring it as the lead of the advisory committee to give recommendation, especially on behalf of water resources as well. Because yeah, my office would need to see those applications.
Do you know if they are aware of where those boundaries are?
The environmental health.
Yeah, like they have a list of addresses.
So they do have, oh, Scott's joining us. They do have the boundaries. I've talked to Craig about it. And, you know, I'm have early conversations with him. I would like him to be more involved with the advisory committee and not necessarily sit on the advisory committee, but it would be crucial for environmental health to at least give an update or give me an update to include in our advisory committee meetings regarding that. So they're well aware of the boundaries. I don't believe they have a list of addresses, but I pointed him in the direction of, you know, where you can see, like you can plug in on the DWR website, they have where you can plug in your address and you can see if you fall in a specific boundary. But he does have the GIS data regarding that as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Scott, thank you for joining us. We're just wrapping up. This was a relatively quick meeting. All right, so if you guys have any questions, especially as the website is kind of wonky right now, please feel free to give us a call, reach out to me, reach out to water.resources, come see us on the 3rd floor. And again, it's our objective to, you know, communicate with you all as best as possible, and really looking forward to this constant contact because that's definitely going to help. And now having our public meetings agendas material right on the Lake County homepage. So hopefully we get more folks involved and interested in GSP. But if not, GSPAC, stay tuned for me to reach out to you all in the next day. Well, today, because it's Friday, regarding a doodle poll so we can get that agenda up and going and that a special meeting set. So if there's anything else, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 12:33. Thank you all so much for your continued engagement and support, and really looking forward to chatting with you all soon.
Thank
Thank
you.